This next portion of the segment is going to talk about the jab. The jab is the most important punch in boxing, and it sets up your offense as well as your defense. Without a proper jab, you cannot be a very effective boxer. You can be a good brawler and a good fighter, but boxing is the style of moving and motion and throwing combinations and being in tune with your opponent, but yet picking them apart to where you are damaging them and taking the least amount of damage as possible. Good boxers are Muhammad Ali, Sugar Shane Mosley back in his prime, and in my opinion, one of the top two fluid boxers are Vasily Lomachenko and Sugar Ray Leonard. There's a couple jabs that I like to use. There's so many different jabs, so many different variations of the jab, but I like to stick to just a few because you don't want to get overwhelmed with learning too many different types of jabs when we're learning just the basics. The basic fundamentals should get you pretty far with learning how to defend yourself or amateur boxing. As followed, we have the basic jab where you just snap your arm all the way out, turning the wrist, your feet do not move. It's good to be quick, but after a while your arm will get tired because it's all an arm punch. So the next jab would be a step jab. A little bit more effective, you're gonna pop out, get a little bit more power in that jab, but if you really are looking for a lot of power within your jab, you're gonna do a forward jab, which is what I call it, but it's a lunging jab, which is a power jab. You're gonna put all of your weight forward, you're throwing your weight off your back foot once again, and extending your arm, everything now goes forward. With this, it is very effective that if you throw this punch and it lands, you need to follow up immediately afterwards, because if you give your opponent enough time to recover, that can be bad. When working on the jab, there's a few components that you want to focus on. You want to make sure that your jab extends all the way out. Often, a lot of boxers will give a half punch and their wrist won't turn all the way over. You'll have people throw a punch like this, where wrist isn't turned all the way over and the arm isn't fully extended. Make sure the knuckles are landing every time you throw your punch. Elbow is up, protecting your chin. Another thing that we want to focus on is when he throws his jab, his elbow is pointing to the ground. A lot of times, a lot of people throw their jab and their elbows are out here. For some reason, I do not know how to do it, but it's almost like that when you throw your jab. I don't like that. I don't think it's really good because it's not gonna be good in the long run. It's going against all mechanics. It's almost like a pulley system. You just twist your wrist, lock your arm, you're stepping forward with all that power. If it's crisp, it can be effective. Believe it or not, I won my first amateur bout with a jab. I knocked the guy out of the ring onto the judges table, and I believe I fractured his, or did something to his nose. I'm not sure, but it does work and it is effective. Believe it or not, if you don't believe this is true, you can ask my coach, you can ask a couple of the people within my the boxing community who were there. I didn't even know the guy moved. I threw a jab, it was a lunging power jab, and next thing I know, I tried to throw another punch, the guy was already gone. With basic repetition and constant focus on technique, your jab can be very, very powerful. It can be very effective. You can get what we call a flash knockout off a jab. A couple drills that I like to do when working on the jab is I have the opponent, the young man, stand against the wall in their boxing stance and throw their jab. Every time they throw their jab, their back shoulder should be touching the wall. As follows. When this young man just threw that jab, his shoulder was not touching the wall. When you throw your jab, you want to get your back shoulder back. It should hit the wall and you get full extension. That is a sign of a perfect jab. One more time. The wrong way. Shoulder is not touching, as you can see. One more time the right way. full extension. The only difference is he's not stepping. If I wanted him to step and walk the wall, I would have him do that. That's a nice drill to do at home. Also, another way to make sure that the punch is effective is mitt work. I don't recommend that everyone goes out and buy mitts, especially if you don't know how to hold mitts. There is an art, there is a way to hold mitts to where if you hold them the wrong way, you can hurt yourself. A lot of people punch with power because they don't know how to punch yet. And if you're holding mitts the wrong way, you can mess up your wrist, mess up your elbow, if not more. So while you're holding mitts, make sure the pad is at least eye level. Vinny is very short, so he will always have an angle on his punch. It will never be straight. I also want him to punch high because, as my coach taught me, once you get tired, this moves here. So if I teach you to punch here, it'll go there once you're tired. All right, straight out. Good, step with it. Good. This segment of the series, we're going to talk about defense and how to be effective. There's not that many drills or movements within the boxing world to work on your defense. It's just moving your head, slipping. First thing that we're going to work on is slipping punches. You're slipping in or out, slip in, slip out. Just getting your head away from the punches. You'll have a chance where you're rolling from hooks. His body is going in a U motion. As he crouches, his knee turns in or turns out. Then you have a duck where you just change your levels. Now, it seems like it's very basic, but those are just a few of the defensive movements. Constant repetition of these basics will have you being able to do more advanced moves, as in you can slip and then pivot. Or you can duck and pivot. Best way to work on these drills is as shown. I have mitts. Do not, I repeat one more time, do not go out and buy mitts just to put on a show or to work with someone unless you know what you're doing. Holding mitts is an art, but it has to be taught. If you do not know how to hold the mitts the right way, you can mess up your wrist or your elbow because a beginner does not know how to punch the right way. So they're gonna throw with a lot of power. A lot of power coming back, too much resistance can be very dangerous. So what we're gonna work on, we're gonna just work on a couple. He's just gonna slip punches. As I am throwing the punches, notice how I'm throwing the punches right at his face or where it was at the time of the punch. I'm throwing right at where he's coming. Now we're gonna work on rolls. Boom. Throwing the hook right where his head should be. Right where his head should be. Back to slips. You want to go slow, that way they get the hang of it. Once time goes by and you guys get more comfortable, you can go a little faster. Mind you, I'm not telling him what I'm doing, so he is pausing for just a moment, but I'm going slow enough to where he can pick up on it. I'm going right at his head. And if you notice, I've touched his hat a few times. Now, usually, every time he slips or he rolls, there's a punch that comes back. But just for these basic purposes, and basic teaching purposes, I don't want to add any extras. Just want to focus on the bare minimum so that once we master that, then we can move on to the next phase. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch the video. Mind you, this is going to be a series, but this segment was just on the basics of boxing, the stance, the jab, defense, different things that you can work on at home to where I'm not putting too much on you and you can master that before moving to the next level. This also will be a series that is gonna go on since a lot of people cannot train at the gym or at a boxing gym. You can look at these videos and brush up on a little bit of the basics, a little bit of your techniques. And there's no person in this world that cannot get better. Please make sure to share, subscribe, like our page, give me feedback. I'm not a professional yet. I'm working at it and I can always improve. So feel free to comment and like. Thank you.